Hey everybody, it's Henry here. We've got a brief transiting report for the astrology for this week ahead coming here. I told you guys I want to do one of these every week. Well, here we are a week later. Did I prepare for it? No. Sorry about that, but we're just going to briefly look over it, okay? So, because I've got about 20 minutes before the moon makes the opposition to Venus, and, we have a void of course moon all day, which could be a little difficult. But as you know, we've got, the way I've decided to do these charts is I've got the chart number 1 set up for 2020. So this, when we look at the transits to this chart, it's mostly going to affect places where fixed sign was rising at the spring equinox. But say you live in California, you'd want to do this with the winter chart, because it would be a movable. Okay, so just taking a look at this week as a brief, let's just kind of scan through it. I don't know if you guys like the dark theme or the black and white with the black emphasized. It's easier for me to look at. Let's turn off the MC line. Not that it's not important, it's just too much. Okay, so here we are on the 27th is today, I believe. Yeah. 27. This morning, you're living through this morning. By the time you see this will be over. But it's kind of extreme. The opposition can be like a Mexican standoff. So, and we don't have it up here, but Venus is applying to Pluto, so that's kind of a dark energy that Venus has to go through before it goes into Aquarius to meet up with Mercury, who's going to retrograde. So that's another thing we can say. The Sun is going to this week go past Jupiter. During the full moon. Mercury is going to retrograde on the 30th, and then Venus is going to go into Aquarius next week, and we'll talk about that more in my February video that we're going to do. So the moon has to go through the opposition and the square to Leo, or the square to Mars, tomorrow on the 28th. And that's pretty much all day. I've heard some people think this is good, some people think this is bad. Well, I don't know. It looks a little difficult, in my opinion. But with Jupiter there, it might feel refreshing in some way. It just could be kind of extreme, because there's a lot of force on Mars and Taurus here. Mars and Taurus isn't doing its best. Can you know astrology, so you already know, but Mars was in Aries for many months, and it was kind of like energetic in a different way. Like we were doing things. When we were doing things, we were like knocking them out, like bam, bam, bam. But with this Mars and Taurus, we're definitely taking it slower. Things are slow. I think everyone can notice that. So I think there'll be some tension between that and just how the luminaries are throwing light on how we want to expand. But it's just going to take more time because we don't have the energy or the proper momentum for that yet. So just briefly looking over at let's look at the calendar. So as I told you, I have the 2020 chart set up. So if you're in the Eastern USA, this is for us. So, and I'm kind of experimenting with how these transits show up. So we didn't really talk about it too much, but on the 26th, on Tuesday, I should have included this in my last report, but Venus went over the Saturn or the Mars Jupiter conjunction for 2020 last year, and I tried to pick up on that, and I felt like there was a lot of expansion or some sense of reward concerning what that represented in that area of the chart, which is something it's um, it felt good, but I think what it represented in the chart was more difficult than what I experienced of it yesterday. It was kind of just picking up on the rewards for going through that, even if they're not as tangible as they could be if these planets were in different places. So I'll leave that to you before I get too off. But so yeah, the moon makes these oppositions and squares. Jupiter goes over the sun. We just have some uncomfortable or comfortable moon stuff with the 2020 chart. It looks like nothing too spectacular. It looks like all these days this week are just on and off. We're kind of emotionally picking up on Mercury with the moon in Virgo and Mercury retrograde happening that day. So we're picking up on how we're no longer moving forward so much with our goals related to our thinking and our like stream of consciousness that we do every day, but we're going back and we're dealing with all of the implications to our new social structure mostly. So that's like that looks like Mercury going back, and it'd depend on your chart to tell you what you be trying or what Mercury will be doing with you, but it definitely is going to move backwards. This whole week has been like preparing for Mercury to stop for me. Like let's look at I just want to see, Mercury is moving pretty slow, right? Still moving forward, but you see it's like barely barely finishing a degree in one day. Yeah, so we're just preparing for that stop. And if you do a job like me that's very mercurial, you probably want to have prepared for that in the natural, because it's just something we go through, and it will tell a story for us as it goes back, and Venus will meet up with it while it's still in its retrograde. So where we're looking for our goals to be achieved, to find the reward, to get the information about that. The information is going to come back, deal with these things that we've already dealt with because they're different now, and then we'll be able to move forward in this area. So whatever Aquarius represents for you, if it's just slowing down now, that's a part of what that is in the natural side of things. So the moon goes through this, the sun moves over Jupiter, the moon makes opposition to Mercury, Mercury stations retrograde. So there could be some delays, right around this time. I would expect delays the rest of the week. That wouldn't be upset if there were delays. So Although it's disappointing, you know, that's the interesting thing. I feel like when Mercury starts to retrograde, sometimes like you start getting new ideas that you just can't quite put into place yet, or you can't quite act on them because there's some different kind of work that needs to be done first. But anyway, um, so the moon goes into Mercury ruled sign of Virgo. So Mercury's turning around. The moon is ruled by that. It's kind of, I think it's good because the moon is able to use this incidentally strong Mercury to kind of help out Mars and Taurus somehow. Maybe cleaning up his room or something like that, like just getting things tidy and orderly so that we can get a lot of stuff done. Like getting things done really has the emphasis by the end of the month, which makes sense according to how people generally think about the end of the month. Especially this month. I imagine there's a lot of rental crisis, loan crisis, money crisis with Mercury doing all this and it being the time of the year that it is. But I'm not a predictor really. We just want to see what we see. Like these charts aren't exactly predictions. Like to predict an exact event would be divine explicitly because it would have to come from God. But these stars have come from God and their messages are from God. And they work according to God's word. They don't deviate, they don't jostle each other. They're under God's judgment. And they do what they're ordained to do. So, it looks like by the end of the day, by the end of the day on the 31st, the moon will be picking up on Venus, who's moved past Pluto here in this chart. Don't have Pluto up, but that is where Pluto is, in the end degree of Capricorn there. So the moon goes past Pluto and Venus with the trine. Excuse me. And that's, Venus, the moon is going to pick up on all this stuff in Libra. I've been noticing, like, when the moon gets to Gemini, since the two traditional outer planets have moved into Aquarius, I've noticed that it's cold. It's kind of restricted. It's like very nice, like we expect socializing and so on to be, but it's kind of very pared back, or just you can feel that Saturnine coldness sort of in the air, because of the air sign. Before, they were in Capricorn, which was throwing a square and an inconjunction to both of those signs, those two air signs. So it was quite a bit different. Gemini's been alienated the past number of years by those signs, and Libra's been in a square position. So this is probably easier for you if you've been dealing with that, because the trines are there, but at the same time, it's definitely cold. It's a colder sort of mood. It's like it's like a friendly smile from a tired old man. if you can feel me, if you can catch my drift there. But it's not too important. It's just somewhat cold with the Aquarian energy, even when it's positive. Jupiter, the dispositor of the trine, is in Saturn's house with Saturn. So, you know, it's not bad. It's good. It's just kind of. Hey, I was getting a call. That was a rude interruption, but so it's kind of cold. The moon and the sun are picking up on the aspects to the nodes, the nodal pairing. Venus is moved into Aquaries by what time? So it happens on the first. So the dispositor of where Mars and the moon are is going to change signs. So Venus is no longer going to be in Capricorn, wherein Mars is exalted. So there was a sense of reception between Venus and Mars that isn't going to be the case anymore. Now everything already was going back to Saturn by disposition, but now there's no mutual reception because Mars doesn't have any dignity in Aquaries either, and Venus is there. Mars won't be able to work as well as he has been able to, even if you feel it's not been too great. It's just going to be different. People in general are going to notice that, wow, February is different. Like there's something definitely different about this month. So people are going to be really picking up on that intuitively, I think, on the first. Things are different now. And Aquaries with Venus, I don't know what that's going to be like. I think it'll be, I feel like I overuse the word eccentric when I talk about it. But it's gonna be different, and we have all the traditional planets except for Mars up there. So I think we're just gonna have to feel out what it is. I don't know if it'll be that much different, but it'll certainly be, I think, even slower. I think things are going to really have to slow down and get very intellectual on a lot of different levels. People are going to move slower, and it's just going to be a different dynamic. Remember when Mercury retrograded in Cancer in the summertime? I definitely do. It was really nice for me. I ended up being able to reconnect with my family in a really deep way and just kind of reminisce and go over these old things, these old memories. I kind of fallen out with my family a lot the past few years, and there was like a sense of reality had come in so much because of COVID that we really it seems like we all brought ourselves to really care more about each other and about our country and just family stuff, like real connected stuff with Mercury retrograding Cancers. That was a pretty noticeable one for me. And I've heard other people talk about how much they liked that time. This time it's in Aquaries, which is in conjunct from Cancer, so I wouldn't expect those themes to come up at all. I've been feeling like if whatever you have in Cancer is kind of hidden from all the rest of this. There was something going on the other day. The moon was in the 12th house, coming over the eastern horizon, and the sun was setting, and it was a really weird feeling. It was really, really strange. Like you look on one side and the sun is there, and you look on the other side and the nearly full moon is right there. So that in conjunction between the uh, Aquarius and the Cancer is very, it's very sublimated or hidden, even though it's a pretty large dynamic. It's it's an alienating dynamic. So whatever you have in that area of life, I'm sure you've felt it too. It's kind of cold or just not seen. But before we get way too speculative and talking about other stuff, so the moon is gonna move ahead, perfect that kite aspect with the nodal pairing, and then come to the trine to Mercury retrograde. So Mercury, I've heard, is a triplicity ruler of Aquarius. Venus is there. So in a sense, Venus is getting filtered through Mercury too. I feel like it's this whole rest of this week is going to feel very mercurial after the full moon. It's going to be very much thinking, numbers, going back, maybe even taking a break from all that stuff because there's just no time, or energy is low. Well, that's sort of what I've got for you all, everybody. That was fun to talk about. Honestly, it cheered me up a little bit. Oh my goodness. Well, it doesn't look so bad. It really doesn't. So, once the moon gets into Scorpio, things might get pretty emotionally exhausting or dramatic. But that's for next week. So let's just look over the calendar real quick. See if there's any activations that we should talk about. Okay, Mars square natal moon. Now that's definitely one we should talk about. Okay, what is there? Is there any other ones? Sun square Mars in the transiting. The day that Venus goes into Aquarius. Okay, so there is quite a lot. There's quite a lot. So we should definitely talk about that before we go. So yeah. So we pretty much talked about the transiting, Mercury retrograde, moon in Virgo, moon in Libra, moon making that nice aspect to Aquarius, but still it's kind of queasy. If you ask me, it's kind of doesn't quite feel right, and I think we're gonna feel some struggle, like some new challenge or some old challenge, some new challenge relative to an old challenge might come up on the first, some kind of challenge. And so let's see, the three aspects we really have to talk about are Venus conjunct natal Saturn, Venus sextile natal Sun, Sun conjunct natal Moon, Mars square natal Moon. Okay, guys. So this is really the nugget that I have for you here, because you wouldn't necessarily see this in an ordinary transiting report. So there's a lot of stuff with this natal moon here. The sun has gone over that place exactly where the moon was during March 20th of 2020. that moment of Aquarius. The sun is right there. And with Venus passing into Aquarius, that's exactly sextile where the sun was at the Aries ingress. So, and that's the Venusian aspect. So I imagine this will seem more pronounced, I imagine, if you live in this area of the world. But really throwing a lot of light on that restriction, feeling really heated up because of all that restriction. The feeling of restriction has really come to a head probably around this time. Okay. So, kind of really throwing a lot of light on that, but the sun is there too. It's not just the Mars squaring the moon. There, it's the sun there. The sun is finally caught up to where that light was, and he's sharing all the light he can on that, even though he's debilitated. So it's definitely going to be noticeable on the end of Monday through the end of Tuesday. Those themes might just be coming out, maybe not for you, but just in the scheme of things. All right. Well, I'd really like to pull up Robert Hand's book. Okay, so I got Robert Hand's Planets in Transit here. Venus conjoins Saturn. So we're going to use this book, but, this is really for people's individual natal transits, right? So I think we can pull some insight out of it, but I think you'll see it show up in your life in a metaphorical way, so to speak. Does that make sense? Like, it probably won't be attracted to you unless you have this configuration or similar configuration in your chart to your natal transit. But analogically, I think we can see something from this. So, under this transit, love and affection are strongly tempered by practical considerations. Okay, so this is Venus conjunct the Saturn of 2020 chart, which is at like the 29th degree in 50 minutes, I think. So, yeah, I imagine it to be more sobering. Venus is going into Saturn's other house, where Saturn currently is. It's going to be restrained. Restraint. Yeah, I imagine so. Recognize the limitations that we have financially. A sense of alienation. Loyalty and soberness. So yeah, look for that one. Look for that. That's gonna be on Monday morning. And the moon is picking up on that too. Wow, the moon is like really in line with that. You see that? Venus trine the moon with all that. With the challenge in the background. So I imagine there'd be a financial challenge or just some kind of challenge, and probably a financial challenge. Do I have all the money this month? How am I going to have the money the end of the month? How am I going to have whatever, I don't want to worry you. No. It's all, it's all okay, especially if you trust the Lord. When I do these reports, I'm not saying that you should trust in these configurations or your own wisdom to know how to do life. Most things aren't in our control, and most things are beyond our understanding. So even though we can contemplate it with God's help, in the end, we're going to have to trust him and get the wisdom from him if we're going to do his will. So, let's see. Venus. Let's do Moon conjoin, or Sun conjoin Moon, and then we'll do Mars square Moon, okay? Yeah, so if you don't know, this is Planets in Transit, Life Cycles for a Living by Robert Hand. Really interesting, useful book if you're trying to figure out your transits. All right, what are we doing? We're doing Sun conjunct Moon. Okay. This transit brings your personal, domestic, and emotional life to prominence. All the symbolic power of the solar energy is infused into your emotions, bringing them to the surface where you can observe and learn to understand them. But you needn't worry. This transit will not be especially turbulent. In fact, you will feel more integrated and at one with yourself in many ways now than any other time. And your relationships with other people, especially women, should be more harmonious as well. This is because you approach everything as a total person with no loose ends hanging out to signify divided intentions. Okay. I'm just assuming that you can read this too. This transit will bring out all your unconscious attitudes. So take a long look at what comes up today. This can be a time of great discovery. Changing things, a new moon, not about getting ahead. Okay, so this looks like a really good day to just get centered, as they say, but really to make your intentions very clear for yourself. Well, you can read this. You figure out what this means for you, okay? Um, so we're going to look at Mars square the moon. This is a really good book for all your transits astrology. It's really what it's for. But I think we can find some common themes between us by looking at the annual revolution transit. So let's see. Mars square moon. Be extremely careful of your tendency toward moody irritability at this time. Long buried tensions may surface now. So it looks like there's lots of things that are just coming up from out of nowhere almost in the world, or the way we all relate to the world. So these frustrated energies, these unconscious drives, Accidents are most likely at home. Be careful of injuries. Okay. All right, let's look back at this. So those have it on 2 different days. We're talking about Monday and we're talking about Tuesday. So you really got to combine those meanings in your mind there for the Sun square Mars transit, the Sun conjunct Moon natal transit, and the Mars square Moon transit. So this theme, it's like very personal. It's not just Mars square Sun right now. It's like your deep level, like your unconscious. Like if you avoid stuff about who you really are and what really drives you, that might really come out this few days. So I would really, if you can, spend the time to reflect and look at yourself. I think Mercury retrograde might be wanting to tell us something about that. Well, that's really what I've got for you guys today. I'm going to edit this video and throw it up. And I think throw it up. Put it up on YouTube. Not that it's vomit. But I will put it up on YouTube so you can think about it with me. So I thank you for listening. I hope God will bless you and show you his favor and his face in Jesus' name. Thank you, guys.